building a fire is easy until you try to keep it burning. At least that's the truth that became real to me back in our second home in Texas. You see, my wife, Sherry, and I, we were coming out of our starter house, just looking for more space for our growing family of two little boys. And the house that we moved into, it became home in every sense of the word. It's where we welcomed two new additions into our family, our daughter Trinity and our youngest son Micah. And we made countless cherished memories in that house. I mean, we loved it. Now, catch this. The backyard, it was an acre. It was almost like a park. It had a lot of open space, but it also had large trees in it. And there was an actual creek with running water in the back. And it was so cool. And the house itself, it had a little wood-burning fireplace. Nothing impressive. But let me tell you, I got way too into making fires in the winter. It became one of my favorite things about wintertime. I even went out and bought a real wood-splitting axe. Like I went full-on Paul Bunyan. And so I'd gather sticks of all sizes. I'd go out in the back and I would chop up fallen limbs. I even cut down a dead tree and split the wood myself so that we would have future wood. And I felt like a real rugged outdoorsman, which is funny because, truth be told, I was a know-nothing city kid who thought, roughing it meant using 2-ply toilet paper. But in my head, man, I was providing, I was gathering wood, I was braving the elements, I was keeping my people warm. Now, obviously, being a city kid who had no real knowledge or experience of the outdoors, I had no idea what I was doing at first. I would take old newspaper and I would ball it up, or I would rip up cardboard and I would light it and boom, instant flame, right? It was big and flashy, but it was also gone in a flash. All smoke, no warmth, nothing that lasted. And so eventually, through some trial and error and also advice from my wife, who is a lot smarter about these things than I am, I figured it out. And here's the lesson that stuck with me. If you want a fire that lasts, you need more than a spark. You need fuel. You need structure. You need time. For a long time, I think I approached my spiritual life the same way I first approached making a fire. Chasing moments, craving emotion, burning hot, but then burning out. And don't get me wrong, those moments, they looked intense and they felt powerful, but it didn't last. And so here's what I've come to believe, and it's this. Spiritual maturity isn't about how high your flames burn. It's about how long it lasts. Emotions are like that newspaper that I eventually learned to use as kindling, quick to light, but it's also quick to fade. And again, emotions aren't bad, they're good, but they're not enough. And let's be honest, they shift all the time. They're not necessarily trustworthy. They shift with our mood or the music we listen to or our circumstances. Lasting fire needs logs. It needs depth and weight and time. And that's what real growth looks like, not just flashes of passion, but years of quiet faithfulness through seasons of abundance, as well as through like dry seasons or even stormy ones. Quiet faithfulness means being consistent in our time in Scripture and our time in prayer, consistent in learning time as far as to surrender and to trust. And it also involves time struggling and failing so that, as we talked about last week, self-dependence is like pressed out of us to make room for God dependence. And let's be honest, the stuff that actually changes you and me, it rarely looks or feels flashy or impressive, but it lasts. There's a verse in Exodus 23 where God speaks to the Israelites and he's about to give them the promised land. And this is what he tells them. It stuck with me. It's so intriguing. He says, I'm not going to drive out the Canaanites in a single year. Instead, little by little, I will drive them out before you until you have increased. I mean, think about it. God could have cleared the land in a moment, but he didn't. Why? Because they weren't ready. And I think the same could be said of you and me. And so it's important for us to understand and to remember that God is not just about solving problems. He is much more concerned with shaping people. And that takes time. And it takes struggle and sometimes silence and even suffering. But through it all, he's growing us little by little. And so here's my encouragement to you. If you're in a season where faith feels flat or routine or dry, don't assume that you're failing. Faithfulness over time is one of the clearest signs of real growth. And so don't panic. Don't rush. Definitely don't compare. God is not after a spark. He is after a steady fire, strong and quiet and unshakable. Because the fire that lasts, it takes time.